ज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूपः कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरो श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरोन् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सहगणा रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सहगणा ललितां श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च। नमो ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन् इति नामिने। नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे। नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौतुषे नमः। हे कृष्णा करुणा सिन्धो दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेशा गोपिका कान्ता राधा कान्त नमोस्तुते। तप्त काञ्चन गौरांगी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। पंचकल्पतरुर्भ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर शिवासादि गौर भक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ओम नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय। नारायणं नमस्कृत्य नरं चैव नरोत्तमं देवीं सरस्वतीं व्यासं ततो जयामुदीरयेत्। नष्टप्रायेषु भद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तम श्लोके भक्तिर्भवती नैष्ठकी। Studying Srimad-bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 5, Narada's instructions on Srimad-bhagavatam to Vyasadeva. We discussed the first 11 verses of this chapter, in which we talked about Vyasadev's despondency. He's sitting in meditation and figuring out the cause of his problem. Narad Muni comes to his place. Vyasadeva welcomes him, receives him well, and then asks him, why am I not satisfied? Narad Muni first of all glorifies Vyasadev's hard work and efforts, and then he says, you have done a mistake. You did not sufficiently glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna. That was your fault. And you gave more emphasis on dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. Vyasadeva admits his fault and asks him for the solution, asks Narad Muni for the solution. So Narad Muni says, now you work on a literature which will completely be dedicated to Lord Shri Krishna. Then he spoke about two kinds of scriptures and two kinds of people. In verse number 10 of this chapter, he spoke about materialistic people who are like crows, and they enjoy reading newspaper, novels, magazines, knowing about material things related to the material world. And then there are people who are like swans, tadvag visargo janataga viplavo yasmin prati shlokam abhattavatyapi namanyanandasya yashon gitaniyat Shinvanti gayanti grinanti sadhavaha. That all those literatures, even if they're irregularly composed, but have the transcendental glories of the Supreme Lord, they are heard, sung, accepted, and glorified by people who are completely pure in heart. Such literatures, they create revolution in the hearts of people from misdirected civilization. So we stop there. Now, Narad Muni will speak to Vyasadeva about the glory of bhakti. Why bhakti is most glorious, and that's why Vyasadeva should emphasize completely on bhakti in a particular literature, and that literature is called, that literature is called Srimad-bhagavatam. So we shall share the PPT, not the PPT, the text with all of you to follow. I think you are able to see the screen. Verse number 12 of chapter 5. Naishkarmyamapyachyuta bhavavarjitam na shobhate jnanamanam niranjanam kutah punah shashvada bhadramishvare na charpitam karma yadapyakaranam. Knowledge of self-realization, even though free from all material affinity, does not look well if devoid of a conception of the infallible God. What then is the use of fruitive activities, which are naturally painful from the very beginning and transient by nature, if they are not utilized for the devotional service of the Lord? So what is Narad Muni telling Vyasadeva? That even if people are engaged in cultivating spiritual knowledge, but that knowledge is only including the knowledge about Atma, Brahma Gyan, but is not talking about Paramatma and Bhagavan, means people are only interested in Aham Brahmasmi, but not interested in realizing Paramatma and Bhagavan, then even that spiritual knowledge or transcendental knowledge, after some period of time, becomes boring, becomes dry, because it's incomplete. So Narad Muni is saying, even if you talk of self-realization and do not touch on the subject matter of God realization, that subject is going to become tasteless in some course of time. Then what to speak of material subject matter, which is only talking about fruitive activities? What is fruitive activities? You do some work to get some desired result. That's called fruitive activity. So if people are only engaged in karma, how can they be satisfied? Why? Because the nature of fruitive activities is that it is very painful right from the beginning. Not that it becomes painful later, it is very painful right from the beginning. And this we have all experienced in this world. Whenever we were motivated to work for a particular result, it was not easy. You have to compete hard with the people who are there in this world acting as your competitors, whether it is school, whether it is college, whether it's your work area. It's not easy. One has to really, really take so much of stress and anxiety to do what we are doing. Not that, people are very easily earning money and living in good house in a city like Mumbai. They have to really, really work hard. They have to get involved in politics. They have to, protect themselves from envious people. So many things happen. So fruitive work is painful, not easy. The point is, from childhood, we have been programmed to accept that painful life as the normal life. That this is how life is. This is how your grandparents have struggled. This is how your parents have struggled. And this is how you need to struggle. And that's what they say is the law of the nature. We can't change it. So just accept it like that. But that's not what really a person wants. Like if you look at a child and you ask a child, how do you want to live your life? I want to live life, with fun. Everything should be fun. But then that person realizes that life cannot be like that. At some point of time, you need to accept the harsh reality. Life is difficult, right? So fruitive activities are very painful. So Narad Muni is telling to Vyasadeva, in the other scriptures that you have written down, you have given so much of emphasis on fruitive activities. You do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. You do this, you get this. So he says that will not really please the person, satisfy the person. Purport. As referred to above, not only ordinary literatures devoid of the transcendental glorification. Can you please keep yourself on mute? As referred to above, not only ordinary literatures devoid of the transcendental glorification of the Lord are condemned, but also Vedic literatures and speculation on the subject of impersonal Brahman when they are devoid of devotional service. Now, this is so important for members of ISKCON to understand. Vedas are vast, and not everything in the Vedas are talking about Krishna. So we don't go to unnecessary section of the Vedas, just like the other Gyanis are interested in so many different aspects of knowledge of the Vedas. We focus on that which will help us to go closer to Krishna. That's all. Otherwise, Vedas are huge. One can just keep on studying, acquiring so much of knowledge. That's not really the purpose of studying the Vedas. The purpose is, through the Vedas, I should know Krishna. That's the main thing. Like sometimes in our society, we see people have so much of craze to learn Sanskrit. We should learn Sanskrit. And if you ask why, if you know Sanskrit, then we'll read the writings of the previous acharyas and we'll relish that. I tell such devotees, it's a brilliant idea. But do you have time to read Prabhupada books, which are in English? That much you don't have time. And then you want to read learn Sanskrit, to read the books of previous acharyas. This Kali Yuga brain cannot understand the simple English written by Prabhupada. And then we think this Kali Yuga brain will understand the original Sanskrit text. It's waste of time. If you want to really learn Sanskrit, then take another birth. And when you are then 5-year-old, go to a Gurukul and then learn Sanskrit. So that after that Sanskrit is learned for 12-15 years, then you can study the books and understand them. So we should know Sanskrit is a wonderful language, but just by knowing Sanskrit, we will not go back to God. And just by knowing Sanskrit, we will not understand the Vedas. Right? Prabhupada has given the Vedas in English. And by studying that in English, one can go back to God. So I'm not saying one should not study Sanskrit, but one should not miss on the goal. The goal is, I have to get closer to Krishna. That's the goal, not the language, right? So if you don't have time to read the books written by Prabhupada, then please don't go for Sanskrit study. Don't waste your time there. Just study the books written by Srila Prabhupada in English, normal English, understand them and apply in life. Then if you have extra time, then okay, go for Sanskrit. Learn Sanskrit. The way Srila Prabhupada has written his books, if one is actually very sincere, one can understand Sanskrit just by reading these books. One can learn that much Sanskrit easily. If one is little good at learning languages, right? But then to learn it from scratch and then learn the grammar and then you read the Sanskrit and then you have to find the context and then you translate it in the right way, then you understand. It's a very time-taking process, very time-consuming process. Anyway, coming to the purport again, when speculation on the impersonal Brahman is condemned on the above ground, then what to speak of ordinary fruitive work, which is not meant to fulfill the aim of devotional service? Such speculative knowledge and fruitive work cannot lead one to the goal of perfection. Fruitive work in which almost all people in general are engaged is always painful either in the beginning or at the end. It can be fruitful only when made subservient to the devotional service of the Lord. In the Bhagavad Gita also it is confirmed that the result of such fruitive work may be offered for the service of the Lord. Otherwise, it leads to material bondage. The bona fide enjoyer of the fruitive work is the personality of Godhead. And thus, when it is engaged for the sense gratification of the living beings, it becomes an acute source of trouble. So the point is, now because we are studying Bhakti-vaibhava, we have to really study deeply. Any person who engages in any karma which is not done for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord, even if that is a right kind of karma, it's not sinful, it is a pious activity, that also becomes a cause of suffering in the material world. Why? Because the world has been designed in such a manner that one should act only and only for the pleasure of the Supreme Lord. To not act for his pleasure and to act for one's own pleasure is itself a sin. It's itself wrong. Why it is wrong? Because the body which I think is mine, it's not mine. The power to use the hands and the legs to speak, to see, to hear, which I think is mine, is not mine. The resources that I manipulate in this world, which I think are mine, they are also not mine. They belong to Krishna. And I have to use all of that to give pleasure to Krishna. If in this world, if someone steals away your property and starts using it for his or her own benefit, then you will call that person a thief, right? And that's what everyone in this world is doing. They are stealing away Krishna's property, which goes on in the name of, well, that's how the world is, but that's not how it should be. The so-called good people of this world, if you really look at them from the perspective of the scriptures, they are all thieves. All thieves. And being a thief means there'll be punishment. There'll be suffering. So fruitive activity is dangerous. That's why one should work only for Krishna. Yagyat arthat karmano anyatra lokoyam karma bandhanaha tadartham karma kod. Right? Mukta Sangha Samacharaha. For pleasure of Krishna, one should work. Otherwise, there is bondage, serious bondage, and this should be understood even by practicing devotees. Next verse, verse number 13. Atho mahabhaga bhavana mogadrik suchishava satyarato dhrita vrataha uru kramasyakila bandha muktaye samadhinan usmara tad vicheshtitam. O Vyasadev, your vision is completely perfect. Your good fame is spotless. You are firm in vow and situated in truthfulness. So he's talking about 4 qualities of Vyasadeva. First, his vision is completely perfect, which means what? When he sits down in meditation, his meditation does not break. Our meditation breaks when we sit to chant japa, when we are taking darshan of the deity, when we are hearing katha. Our meditation breaks. We are not able to concentrate on it for a long period of time, right? It breaks. Why it breaks? Because our mind is impure. That's why it breaks. And why our mind is impure? Because we are living an impure lifestyle. So our mind is impure. So when the mind is impure, the meditation will not be steady or constant. But Vyasadeva meditation is steady, constant. So he's telling you have this one good quality. And what else? Your good fame is spotless, which means that your character is very good. Because of that, you are very famous. And next, you are firm in vow, which means if you decide to do something, you are able to do it. You complete the work. And finally, you are situated in truthfulness. And thus you can think of the pastimes of the Lord, right? When a person has these qualities, then a person can think of pastimes of Krishna. then the pastimes of Krishna will manifest in the heart of that person. One can think, one can absorb oneself in those pastimes of Krishna. In trance for the liberation of the people in general from all material bondage. We should know the acharyas who have written down the scriptures, they have written them down because they could see the pastimes of Krishna in their mind's eye. And what they saw, they wrote down. If you study the books of Srila Rupa Goswami, Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, they have given those pastimes of Krishna which even Vyasadeva did not describe in Srimad-bhagavatam. So how did they see those pastimes? When they sat down in the meditation, in the mind's eye, they were able to see all those pastimes. They were able to enter into those pastimes. And what they saw, because of their purity, they wrote it down. But why were they able to do so? The qualities are mentioned here. These qualities enable the person to enter into Krishna's pastimes and absorb one's mind there. Right? So these 4 qualities are mentioned. And the purport. People in general have a taste for literatures by instinct. They want to hear and read from the authorities something about the unknown, but their taste is exploited by unfortunate literatures which are full of subject matter for the satisfaction of the material senses. Such literatures contain different kinds of mundane poems and philosophical speculations, more or less under the influence of Maya, ending in sense gratification. So many novels are there out there, and people read them like anything. So many poems, so many books on history, biographies, so much people read. All crap. These literatures, although worthless in the true sense of the term, are variously decorated to attract the attention of the less intelligent men. Thus, the attracted living entities are more and more entangled in material bondage without hope of liberation for thousands and thousands of generations. What happens is when we read such literatures, these literatures, they create desires in our heart, fantasies, imaginations, ambitions, and then a person starts pursuing those desires. So then it becomes a cause of bondage, because the more we have material desires, the more material fantasies and imaginations, that many births will have to take. So the literatures, they fill the mind of the person with those desires. Sri Narad Rishi, being the best amongst the Vaishnavas, is compassionate towards such unfortunate victims of worthless literatures. And thus he advises Sri Vyasadeva to compose transcendental literature, which is not only attractive, but can also actually bring liberation from all kinds of bondage. The whole act of publishing nonsense books is sinful. Why it is sinful? Because how do they print the books? They cut down the trees, they make paper from those trees, and then that's how they sell the books, right? Now, cutting down the trees is a sinful act. We cannot cut down the tree because the tree is also a living being. So they cut down miles and miles of forests just to make papers out of it, and then use that paper for printing all kind of nonsense stuff. It's a sinful activity. It is a big sin. And by reading those books, people are more inspired to engage in sinful activities. Right? Srila Vyasadeva or his representatives are qualified because they are rightly trained to see things in true perspective. Srila Vyasadeva and his representatives are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment, fixed in their vows due to their devotional service. Now, this is such a beautiful line by Prabhupada. They are pure in thought due to their spiritual enlightenment. When you cannot be pure in thought without having knowledge of the scriptures. Because when we have knowledge of the scriptures, we learn how to think properly. There has to be training in thinking properly also. How to think. Everyone thinks, but not everyone thinks properly. Many people think in a very wrong manner. So many wrong thoughts come to their mind. But when we study the scriptures, then we learn how I should think and how I should not think. what kind of thoughts should be entertained and what kind of thoughts should be rejected. So one will be able to learn how to think properly by studying the scriptures. Then next, one will be able to follow the vows due to devotional service. If we are not practicing the science of devotional service properly, we will fail in observing the vows. We will fail in following 4 regulative principles. We will fail in completing 16 rounds daily. We will fail in doing the different fastings. We will fail because in Kali Yuga, people are very weak spiritually. And the only strength, the only source of strength for them to maintain their vows is if they do their bhakti sadhana nicely. If they don't do their bhakti sadhana nicely, with the spirit of devotion, Kali will attack. And when Kali will attack, our vows will become, destroyed. We'll not be able to follow them. We will fail in following the vows. So that's why bhakti has to be understood and bhakti has to be practiced. And determined to deliver the fallen souls rotting in material activities. The fallen souls are very eager to receive novel informations every day. And the transcendentalists like Vyasadeva or Narad can supply such eager people in general with unlimited news from the spiritual world. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that the material world is only a part of the material creation. And this earth is only a fragment of the whole material world. There are thousands and thousands of literary men all over the world, and they have created many, many thousands of literary works for the information of the people in general for thousands and thousands of years. Unfortunately, none of them have brought peace and tranquility on the earth. This is due to a spiritual vacuum in those literatures. Therefore, the Vedic literatures, especially the Bhagavad Gita and the Srimad-bhagavatam, are specifically recommended to suffering humanity to bring about the desired effect of liberation from the pangs of material civilization, which is eating the vital part of human energy. The Bhagavad Gita is the spoken message of the Lord himself recorded by Vyasadeva, and the Srimad-bhagavatam is the transcendental narration of the activities of the same Lord Krishna, which alone can satisfy the hankering desires of the living being for eternal peace and liberation from miseries. Srimad-bhagavatam, therefore, is meant for all the living beings all over the universe for total liberation from all kinds of material bondage. Such transcendental narrations of the pastimes of the Lord can be described only by liberated souls like Vyasadeva and his bona fide representatives were completely merged in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Only to such devotees do the pastimes of the Lord and their transcendental nature become automatically manifest by dint of devotional service. No one else can either know or describe the acts of the Lord, even if they speculate on the subject for many, many years. The descriptions of the Bhagavatam are so precise and accurate that whatever has been predicted in this great literature about 5,000 years ago is now exactly happening. Therefore, the vision of the author comprehends past, present, and future. Such liberated persons as Vyasadeva are perfect not only by the power of vision and wisdom, but also in oral reception, in thinking, feeling, and all other sense activities. Liberated people, they can hear properly. We conditioned souls, we don't hear properly. We hear partially. We hear incorrectly. We hear what we like to hear. And what we don't like to hear, we don't hear. So we hear like that. And that's why we don't get the knowledge completely. We get it half, incomplete. But the liberated souls, they can hear very, very attentively and clearly. And that's why they can feel also properly, they can think properly, and they can then speak properly. A liberated person possesses perfect senses. And with perfect senses, only one can serve the sense proprietor, Rishikesha, Shri Krishna, the personality of Godhead. Srimad-bhagavatam, therefore, is the perfect description of all the perfect personality of Godhead by the all-perfect personality, Srila Vyasadeva, the compiler of the Vedas. Verse number 14. Tatonyatha kinchana yat vivakshataha pridhak drishastat kritarupanamibhihi na karhichit kwapi na dushthitam labeta vatahatanor ivaspadam. Whatever you desire to describe that is separate in vision from the Lord simply reacts with different forms, names, and results to agitate the mind as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. Now, again, something very important to think about, to comprehend. This says what? Anything which we think of which is separate from the Lord, any idea, any concept, any plan, anything, that will only and only put us in anxiety, will disturb the peace and calm of the mind, will agitate the mind, anything. And it will react with different forms, names, and results as the wind agitates a boat which has no resting place. So, the point is, this I mentioned before also. Sometimes people think, I'll be for 4 hours a day, I'll practice Krishna consciousness. And for remaining 20 hours, I'll do whatever I like to do. After all, I'm a conditioned soul and I'm in material world and I have so many things to do in life. So 4 hours I'll be devoting, 20 hours I'll do what I like to do. But those 20 hours will not let that 4 hours of Krishna consciousness happen perfectly. What we do in those 20 hours? If we don't live those 20 hours properly in Krishna consciousness, then that 4 hours we use for chanting, studying Bhagavatam, doing whatever we do, we'll only do it mechanically. Our mind will not be there. Our mind will be somewhere else. That I can see when I take classes and I see people's faces in Zoom, I can understand who is in the class, who is not in the class. The mind will not be there. Externally we'll be doing it, but our mind will not be there. Why? Because for those 20 hours, we lived a very materialistic life. Like an ordinary person whom we call a non-devotee. We live like that. And because of that, it affects the remaining 4 hours of sadhana that we do. So for anyone who is a devotee should know, we have to come to the point that we are devotees 24 hours a day. Not only 4 hours or 3 hours or 5 hours or 6 hours. One is a devotee everywhere, whether it is your house, whether it is your office, whether you are commuting, whether you are attending some marriage ceremony, some social gathering, whatever it may be. Devotee means devotee everywhere, all the time. If one does not do that, then whatever sadhana we may do and things like that, the quality of that will be very poor, very poor. So what's the point? A person should be so intelligent that if I am making an investment, I should get the best returns out of it. If I am spending my time somewhere, energy somewhere, then I should get the best benefit out of it. And how I should do that? So one should learn this thing, that Bhagavad Gita teaches us how we can be Krishna conscious, or at least try to be Krishna conscious throughout the day. No matter what is our occupation, no matter where we are, no matter what is happening around us, I should be a devotee. I should think like a devotee. I should live like a devotee. I should behave like a devotee. And that art has to be learned. Otherwise, it will always be a tug of war. The material world will be pulling us, and the sadhus will be pulling us in another direction. Right? Both the things will pull us. And this will go on for a long, long, long time. And we'll go nowhere. We'll just stay here. So that's why one has to work in this direction, that one should aim for becoming a devotee. practicing devotee 24 hours a day. For that matter, if one has to change one's profession, change it. If one has to change one's job, change it. For that one has to change anything, one must change that, so that it becomes favorable for practicing Krishna consciousness. One has to do that, because one has to come to this point that the thoughts that one has is very pure, and one can meditate on Krishna. Without that deep meditation on Krishna, we cannot go back home, back to Godhead. Not possible. A mechanical practice of Krishna consciousness will not help us to go back to Golok Vrindavan. It will not. The mind has to enter into Krishna, Krishna's pastimes. And for that, one has to learn the science and apply that effectively. Reading the purport. Sri Vyasadeva is the editor of all descriptions of the Vedic literatures, and thus he has described transcendental realization in different ways, namely by fruitive activities, speculative knowledge, mystic power, and devotional service. Besides that, in his various Puranas, has recommended the worship of so many demigods in different forms and names. The result is that people in general are puzzled how to fix their minds in the service of the Lord. They are always disturbed about finding the real path of self-realization. Srila Naradev is stressing this particular defect in the Vedic literatures compiled by Vyasadeva, and thus is trying to emphasize describing everything in relation with the Supreme Lord and no one else. In fact, there is nothing existent except the Lord. The Lord is manifested in different expansions. He is the root of the complete tree. He is the stomach of the complete body. Pouring water on the root is the right process to water the tree, as much as feeding the stomach supplies energy to all parts of the body. Therefore, Srila Vyasadeva should not have compiled any Puranas other than the Bhagavad Puran, because a slight deviation from that may create havoc for self-realization. That is the reason why Srila Prabhupada in his books, he focused on only one thing. What is that? Krishna, nothing else. Because Prabhupada knew that if he would give many options to people, people will just get confused. So he kept it very simple and clear. Only Krishna. What's the goal of life? Going back home, back to God. Pure devotional service. He does not entertain mixed devotional service. He does not entertain worshipping of any demigods. He does not entertain anything lower than pure devotional service. One thing. Just focus on one thing. So that people don't get confused. We can do this, we can do that, we can try this, we can try that. If a slight deviation can create such havoc, then what to speak of deliberate expansion of the ideas separate from the absolute truth personality of Godhead? The most defective part of worshipping demigods is that it creates a definite conception of pantheism, ending disastrously in many religious sects, detrimental to the progress of the principles of the Bhagavatam, which alone can give the accurate direction for self-realization in eternal relation with the personality of Godhead by devotional service and transcendental love. The example of the boat disturbed by whirling wind is suitable in this respect. The diverted mind of the pantheist can never reach the perfection of self-realization due to the disturbed condition of the selection of object. Next verse. Jugupsitam dharma krite nushashataha swabhava raktasya mahan vyatikramaha yadvakyato dharma iti tarastito namanyate tasya nivaranam janaha. The people in general are naturally inclined to enjoy, and you have encouraged them in that way in the name of religion. Right? People are naturally inclined to enjoy. You just have to give them opportunity, and they'll jump on it to enjoy, isn't it? They'll jump on it. Like for example, if there is Jagannath Mahaprasadam feast, and you have 20 preparations, so you'll hardly find people just go for khichdi with their 20 preparations. They say, this is prasadam, eat all 20. Today's feast, let me eat all 20. Why go for one? So people have a general tendency to enjoy. That's what we have been doing for millions and millions of lives. So we have a general tendency to enjoy. So what is Narada Muni telling Vyasadeva? To encourage them to enjoy is a stupid thing, because that's what they want to do. If you encourage them to do the same thing in the name of dharma or religion, that's what they want to do. That's not the medicine. The medicine is something else, right? That they have to check this tendency to enjoy. What's wrong with enjoyment? Are we not meant to enjoy? Yes, we are meant to enjoy, but we are meant to enjoy in the right way, not in the wrong way. When we try to enjoy in the wrong way, it looks like enjoyment, but it ends up in suffering. Like if you eat 20 items, then what will happen? The stomach will react. It will not be able to digest it. So we think this is how I can enjoy, but then that leads to suffering. So Narada Muni is saying, if you encourage them to do that, you have only cheated them. You have not shown them the right thing. The right thing is that they should come out of that tendency to enjoy in the wrong way, and they should understand what will give me enjoyment in the right sense. So he says, this is verily condemned and is quite unreasonable, because they are guided under your instructions. They will accept such activities in the name of religion and will hardly care for prohibitions. That's what will people do. They will say, why are you asking me to not enjoy? It's given in the Vedas. It is Vyasadeva who is advocating it. So what's wrong with it? What's wrong? Like sometimes it happens in our society also. When you tell people that on Ekadashi, you should have simple food, then they'll put the blame on the temple. Well, in the temple, they give feast on Ekadashi. So what can I do? I have to eat what they provide in the temple. So they put the blame on the temple or on the kitchen. That's what they are providing. But who asked you to eat everything? You could have taken one preparation also. Who asked you to eat every single thing that they provide? Like once I was in a Rath Yatra, and some outside person, he had brought a container of biscuits, and he was distributing those biscuits around, right? So devotees were taking and eating. So I told them, come on, you are not supposed to eat like normal people. Let the normal people eat these biscuits. If you want to eat, then you eat proper prasadam. Why are you eating the biscuits? Something which you have already given up. Why are you going for that again? You should eat something else. There is so much other option of prasadam available. Why go for those biscuits made by machines? So what did they say? Not our fault. That's what they're giving. So we are eating. So people will put the blame on others. They are providing, so we are eating. But they are not opening your mouth by force and putting it in your mouth. They are just asking you. You can say no also. So people have the tendency to do that in the name of religion, they will try to enjoy. Very few people in this world, they can remain firm in their decision. They get easily carried away by little provocation. So Narada Muni is saying, in the scriptures, if you say, this is how you should enjoy, people will just tell your name that you have asked them to live like this. So that's a big mistake on your part. You should not have done that. You should not have encouraged them to enjoy like this, because that will lead to future suffering. So further reading the purport. Srila Vyasadeva compilation of different Vedic literatures on the basis of regulated performance of fruitive activities as depicted in the Mahabharata and other literature is condemned herewith by Srila Narada. The human beings, by long material association, life after life, have a natural inclination by practice to endeavor to lord it over material energy. They have no sense of the responsibility of human life. This human form of life is a chance to get out of the clutches of illusory matter. The Vedas are meant for going back to God and back home, to revolve in the cycle of transmigration in a series of lives numbering 8.4 million is an imprisoned life for the condemned conditioned souls. The human form of life is a chance to get out of this imprisoned life. And as such, the only occupation of the human being is to reestablish his lost relationship with God. Under the circumstances, one should never be encouraged in making a plan for sense enjoyment in the name of religious functions. Such diversion of the human energy results in a misguided civilization. Srila Vyasadeva is the authority in Vedic explanations in the Mahabharata, etc. And his encouragement in sense enjoyment in some form or other is a great barrier for spiritual advancement, because the people in general will not agree to renounce material activities which hold them in material bondage. This we should know. People will not take to renunciation. That's not natural for them. For millions of lives, they have enjoyed matter, so they still want to enjoy matter. But the problem is, people don't want to hear about renunciation. They want to hear about how can we enjoy in this world. But if we don't hear about it, we'll never do it. So we should hear about it. Even if it is bitter, we should still hear about it. So that someday we will know that this is what has to be done. One has to slowly and slowly give up material sense gratification. Without that, getting Krishna is not possible. Not possible. One has to become detached from material life. That is the path of nivritti. That has to be taken up. That is the whole system designed, whether one is a woman or one is a man. One has to take to renounced order of life. Woman taking to renounced order of life doesn't mean that woman has to take sannyas. But woman taking to renounced order of life means when the husband takes sannyas, then the woman should allow it and should then live away from the husband at home, but completely detached from sense gratification. So renounced order of life is for everyone, for man or for woman. Just like a man has 4 ashramas, a woman also has 4 stages in life. The first stage in the life of a man is a man lives in the Gurukul, under the training of Guru, Brahmachari. The first stage in the life of a woman is she lives at the house as a Kumari, getting training from her mother and father. They both are studying. The boy will study at Gurukul and the girl will study at home. People think, if you keep the girl at home, how will she study? Why she will not study? The mother will teach, father will teach, tutors will come to home and teach. They will teach. So she will study at home. First stage of life. Then the second stage of life in the life of a man is he gets married. Same thing in the life of a girl also. She gets married. Then the third stage in the life of a man is he takes to Vanaprastha, gives away homely comfort, goes to holy places, lives in the forest, does sadhu sangha. That same stage is there in the life of a woman also. She goes with the husband, go to holy places, stays there. Then the fourth stage in the life of a man is he should take sannyas. At that stage, what should the wife do? She will not live in the forest like her husband as a sannyasini, but she will live away from the husband. So that is for her, she's also in one sense then practicing detachment, renunciation. She will live where? She will live at home under the care of her sons, but she'll live in a detached manner. Not that she'll get involved in the quarrel and fight with the daughter-in-law. Not that way, living her life. She'll live as a detached person, only engage in religious activities. We have seen people like that. Old ladies, whole day just practicing devotional life, chanting the names of God, writing the names of God, worshipping the deities, reading Bhagavad-gita, Srimad-bhagavatam, and really not at all bothered about the family problems and family disputes, fights, quarrels, not at all interested. So one has to come to that stage of renunciation. But now, so sad to see 60-year-old people, 65-year-old people still struggling like a young man or woman. So much engrossed in material activities, social activities, earning money, family problems, this, that. No renunciation, no detachment from material life. And the point is, still they think that they will make home back to Godhead. Still they think so. It won't happen. It won't happen. Because the mind is not there. If the mind is not there, how will we go there? The mind is somewhere else. And wherever our mind is, Bhagavad Gita says, that's where you go. That's where I go. So this has to be cultivated. Detachment. At a certain stage of human civilization, when such material activities in the name of religion, as sacrificing animals in the name of yajna, were too much rampant, the Lord incarnated himself as Buddha and decried the authority of the Vedas in order to stop animal sacrifice in the name of religion. This was foreseen by Narada, and therefore he condemned such literatures. The flesh eaters still continue to perform animal sacrifice before some demigod or goddess in the name of religion, because in some of the Vedic literatures, such regulated sacrifices are recommended. They are so recommended to discourage flesh eating, but gradually the purpose of such religious activities is forgotten, and the slaughterhouse becomes prominent. This is because foolish materialistic men do not care to listen to others who are actually in a position to explain the Vedic rites. In the Vedas, it is distinctly said that the perfection of life is never to be attained either by voluminous work, like what the normal people in the present day think. One should work very, very hard, whole day just working, or by accumulation of wealth, or even by increasing the population. But it is so attained only by renunciation. Renunciation. The materialistic men do not care to listen to such injunctions. According to them, the so-called renounced order of life is meant for those who are unable to earn their livelihood because of some corporeal defects, or for persons who have failed to achieve prosperity in material life or family life. So they think that's what inspires them to be renounced. In histories like the Mahabharata, of course, there are topics on transcendental subjects along with material topics. The Bhagavad Gita is there in the Mahabharata. The whole idea of the Mahabharata culminates in the ultimate instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, that one should relinquish all other engagements and should engage oneself solely and fully in surrendering unto the lotus feet of Lord Shri Krishna. When will that day come? We should think about it. When will that day come? After 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, that one will be fully and solely engaged in Krishna consciousness. When will that day come? Are we planning for it or not? Are we thinking about it or not? When will that day come? That we will be 24 hours engaged in Krishna consciousness. Which year? Which year that will be? How many years are left for us to come to that stage? So one has to think about it. If not started planning yet, start planning. Make a plan. Make a plan for that day. After 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. Make a plan. Someday one has to come to that stage. So that plan has to be made. And one has to prepare for that stage also. Because if that stage, we take up to that stage, then we should also be so much interested in Krishna consciousness that we can 24 hours do activities of Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, we will fall back into material life. So we have to make a plan for that. When will that day come? For every one of us, But men with materialistic tendencies are more attracted to the politics, economics, and philanthropic activities mentioned in the Mahabharata. Then to the principal topic, namely the Bhagavad Gita. This compromising spirit of Vyasadeva is directly condemned by Narada, who advises him to directly proclaim that the prime necessity of human life is to realize one's eternal relation with the Lord and thus surrender unto him without delay. Without delay. Surrender unto him without delay. We should not delay the process of surrender. Should not delay. Because the process of surrender, the day of surrender, marks the beginning of the real spiritual life. If we don't come to that day of practicing 24 hours of Krishna consciousness, we have not really started the real spiritual life, the real Krishna consciousness. We have not yet entered into it. And because we have not entered into it, we are not tasting it. We are not deriving that bliss of Krishna consciousness, that joy. Susukham kartum avyayam. We are not. So we have to come to that stage first, because that will mark the beginning of the real Krishna consciousness, pure Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada says here, without delay, one should not delay this. One should make a plan as soon as possible. There will be so many obstacles to coming to that point. So first of all, one has to plan for it, then win over those obstacles by the grace of Lord Krishna. And then that day will come that one can be engaged like this. Otherwise, naturally, automatically, that day will not come, will never come. One has to sit and think meditatively. Where is my spiritual life going? Where am I going? Where am I heading to? In what direction it is going? Right. A patient suffering from a particular type of malady is almost always inclined to accept eatables which are forbidden for him. The expert physician does not make any compromise with the patient by allowing him to take partially what he should not at all take. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that a man attached to fruitive work should not be discouraged from his occupation, for gradually he may be elevated to the position of self-realization. This is sometimes applicable for those who are only dry empiric philosophers without spiritual realization. But those who are in the devotional line need not be always so advised. Next verse. Vichakshano syarhati vedutam vibhorananta parasya nivrittitah sukham pravartamanasya guneranatmanas tato bhavan darshaya cheshtitam vibhoho. The Supreme Lord is unlimited. Only a very expert personality retired from the activities of material happiness deserves to understand this knowledge of spiritual values. Therefore, those who are not so well situated due to material attachment should be shown the ways of transcendental realization by your goodness through descriptions of the transcendental activities of the Supreme Lord. Purport. Theological science is a difficult subject, especially when it deals with the transcendental nature of God. It is not a subject matter to be understood by persons who are too much attached to material activities. Only the very expert who have almost retired from material activities by culture of spiritual knowledge can be admitted to the study of this great science. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is clearly stated that out of many hundreds and thousands of men, only one person deserves to enter into transcendental realization. And out of many thousands of such transcendentally realized persons, only a few can understand the theological science, specifically dealing with God as a person. Sri Vyasadeva is therefore advised by Narada to describe the science of God directly by relating his transcendental activities. Vyasadeva is himself a personality expert in this science, and he is unattached to material enjoyment. Therefore, he is the right person to describe it. And Shukdev Goswami, the son of Vyasadeva, is the right person to receive it. Srimad-bhagavatam is the topmost theological science, and therefore it can react on the layman as medicinal doses. because it contains the transcendental activities of the Lord. There's no difference between the Lord and the literature. The literature is the factual literary incarnation of the Lord. So the layman can hear the narration of the activities of the Lord. Thereby they are able to associate with the Lord and thus gradually become purified from material diseases. The expert devotees also can discover novel ways and means to convert the non-devotees in terms of particular time and circumstance. Devotional service is a dynamic activity, and the expert devotees can find out competent means to inject it into the dull brains of the materialistic population. Such transcendental activities of the devotees for the service of the Lord can bring a new order of life to the foolish society of materialistic men. Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his subsequent followers exhibited expert dexterity in this connection. By following the same method, one can bring the materialistic men of this age of quarrel into order for peaceful life and transcendental realization. Next verse. Tyaktva swadharmam charanambujam harer bhajan upakvotapate tato yati yatra kva bhadram abhud amusyake ko vartha apto bhajatam sadharmataha. If Vyasadeva would say, but if I encourage people to be just engaged in devotional service, and if they fail, if they fall down from the path, what will happen to them? Narad Muni says, no problem. Let them fall down. Whatever they have done, that will go to their eternal credit. No problem. If one takes to Krishna consciousness, risking everything, and let's say one fails to be successful, one will make so much of progress in that short period of time compared to taking to the path of Dhyana Yoga, Ashtanga Yoga, Jnana Yoga, Karma Yoga, anything. Even a moment of life spent in complete surrender to Krishna brings so much of purification of heart compared to other processes of yoga. So a person should go for that. A person should take that risk of dedicating everything to Krishna. Even if that lasts for just few minutes, or few hours, or few days, one should do that. Because that brings heavy purification of the soul. I once asked one question to my spiritual master that sometimes we encourage boys to take up to Krishna consciousness fully, live as a brahmachari, and practice bhakti without any, desires of getting monetary remuneration or luxurious facilities, comforts of life. So what if in future they get married and then enter into household life, take up a job and start working? Maharaj said, for that time which they have spent fully dedicated to Krishna, they'll get immense blessings from Krishna. For that little time which they have served Krishna with no reservations, Krishna will reward them immensely. Why? Because Krishna does not just look at what we are doing, he also looks at with how much of purity we are doing, with how much of innocent faith we are doing, sincerity we are doing. And if that is there just for a short period of time, Krishna will take that, will look at that, appreciate that at least this person tried. At least this person tried to surrender 100%. This person might have failed, but this person at least showed interest in it. Tried. Because Krishna is not a God who is without feelings. He's not a God who does not look at people's sincerity of purpose. He looks at that and he appreciates that. That when a person surrenders to Krishna fully, or at least tries to surrender to Krishna fully, that draws Krishna's attention. That this person is trying at least. So many are not trying. At least this person is trying. So that brings so much of mercy of Krishna, because it's very simple. In this world, if anyone loves us, or at least tries to love us without reservation, we will naturally have some inclination towards that person. We'll naturally develop some space for that person in our heart, that this person is at least trying. So Krishna will also do that with those who try, who try to come out of their comfort zone, their security concerns, their conditions, and at least once go for it. That let me depend on Krishna fully, completely, if not for whole life, for few days, for few hours, for some time, let me do that. So Narad Muni says here, Tyaktva Swadharmam, even if they give their Swadharma, and they take to Krishna consciousness, one who has forsaken his material occupations to engage in the devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, yet there is no danger of his being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational devotees, does not gain anything. As far as the duties of mankind are concerned, there are innumerable duties. Every man is duty bound, not only to his parents, family members, society, country, humanity, other living beings, the demigods, but also to the great philosopher, poets, scientists, etc. It is enjoined in the scriptures that one can relinquish all such duties and surrender unto the service of the Lord. So if one does so and becomes successful in the discharge of his devotional service unto the Lord, it is well and good. But it so happens sometimes that one surrenders himself unto the service of the Lord by some temporary sentiment. And in the long run, due to so many other reasons, he falls down from the path of service by undesirable association. There are so many instances of this in the histories. Bharat Maharaj was obliged to take his birth as a stag due to his intimate attachment to stag. He thought of this stag when he died. As such, in the next birth, he became a stag. Although he did not forget the incident of his previous birth, similarly, Chitraketu also fell down due to his offenses at the feet of Shiva. But in spite of all this, the stress is given here to surrendering unto the lotus feet of the Lord. Even if there is a chance of falling down, because even though one falls down from the prescribed duties of devotional service, he'll never forget the lotus feet of the Lord. Once engaged in the devotional service of the Lord, one will continue the service in all circumstances. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is said that even a small quantity of devotional service can save one from the most dangerous position. Chapter 2, verse number 40. Neha Bikramana Shosti. There are many instances of such examples in history. Ajamila is one of them. Ajamila in his early life was a devotee, but in his youth, he fell down. Still, he was saved by the Lord at the end. So, it is risky. But those who are faithful, those who are strong-willed, and those who have courage in heart, they will take that risk. Are we not risking so many things anyway? Every day we take so much of risk. But then we are ready to take all that risk for making money. We are ready to take all kinds of risk to become famous. We are ready to take all kinds of risk to make our material life better. But when it comes to take risk for Krishna, then we say, no, we should not take risk. Let it be very easy. But for material life, people take so much of risk. So much of risk. But for Krishna, no risk. When it comes to Krishna, we want it very safe and secure. So Krishna will not look at that. Krishna will look at that. That this person is so eager to take risks when it comes to have a good material life. But this person does not want to take any risk for me. That shows his love for me. That shows his love for me. This person is ready to work so hard to earn money, right? Will eat only bread and butter in the morning, and then 2 rotis in the afternoon. At night, some little food. Work for 12 hours, 14 hours, 16 hours, right? But when it comes to serving me, this person doesn't want to work hard. So will Krishna not look at that? Will Krishna not look at that and judge on that basis? Krishna will do. He will see. So we should think, we should understand well the process. If we take to it sincerely, giving ourselves 100% to it, then we will see that Krishna will help us immensely. Immensely. Whatever weaknesses we have, whatever drawbacks we have, our anarthas, Krishna will help us to overcome all of that in just a short period of time. If we are really sincere, Krishna will give all help because he's there to give help. That's what he does. But when we are not sincere, then Krishna is also not going to give so much of his attention to our efforts. That is how Krishna is. He is kind, but he's not that, he does not evaluate people. He evaluates people. He evaluates their sincerity of purpose. So those who are sincere, even if they are very fallen, Krishna will lift them up quickly and put them on a high position in bhakti. Because he can do that. He has all the powers to do that. But it depends on us how much reservations we are keeping when it comes to giving to Krishna. What reservations we have. How much we are holding back. Krishna will see that. Accordingly, he will provide, he will help. Because he knows everything about us, what we think, what we desire, what we want, how much effort we are putting in which direction. So we should understand that. Then making progress will be very easy for us. Next verse. Tasyeva heto prayateta kovido na labhyate yad pramatam uparyadaha talabhyate dukkhavat anyata sukham kale na sarvatra gabhiranam hasa. Persons who are actually intelligent and philosophically inclined should endeavor only for that purposeful end which is not obtainable even by wandering from the topmost planet Brahmaloka down to the lowest planet Patal. As far as happiness derived from sense enjoyment is concerned, it can be obtained automatically in course of time. Just as in course of time, we obtain miseries even though we do not desire them. And this thing has come in Bhagavatam again and again. To study the instruction of Prahlad Maharaj, he tells the same thing. What do they say? Just as without you wanting, suffering comes to you, without you wanting and without you putting efforts, happiness will also come. So don't endeavor for it. It will come. Don't waste your time to get it because it will come by itself. So use that time to cultivate Krishna consciousness. Use that time because time is limited. That we have only as much is given to us. So we should not be stupid. We should not be foolish, unintelligent. What you are going to get, why go for it and waste your time? If a person calls you up, that I'm going to come to your home and deliver to you what you want, then won't it be foolish of mine to travel 2 hours to that person's house just to collect that thing from him or her? If that person is anyway coming to me, I should just stay at home and use that 2 hours for doing something else. But if I say, no, 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 why should that person come? Let me go, let me myself fetch it. Then you waste your 2 hours. Go fetch it. Go 2 hours going, 2 hours coming, 4 hours wasted. An intelligent person will think, that person is coming. I should just stay and use that 2 hours. So likewise, material happiness will come to us without we putting effort for it, just like suffering comes to us. On what basis it will come to us? It will come to us on the basis of our past karma. If it is there for us, it will come. If it is not there for us, we can keep scratching our head, it will not come. It will not come. And if it is there for us, it will come without we wanting it or desiring it or putting efforts for it. It will come. And this we all have experienced. Sometimes we never put good effort in things and still we got so much of success. It has happened with me many times. It must have happened with you also many times. That you did not deserve something because you did not put sufficient efforts and still you got it. Right? And those who worked for it very hard, they did not get. So it came because it was supposed to come. So Brahma says, why waste time? Use that time in cultivating Krishna consciousness. And I'll tell you a true incident, how it happened with me just in the last month, in the month of April. I was supposed to fly to Gorakhpur. And I had booked the ticket in the month of February or March. So I knew the date for which I booked the ticket. It was 45 days or 2 months later. And I was supposed to fly early morning. So my flight time was something like, not early morning, my flight time was 9 o'clock in the morning, Saturday. Now, I got a mail from SpiceJet in mid-March and I did not check that mail. I thought it might be just a reminder, you have not done web check-in, do the web check-in. And so I did not do. And then before the flight was supposed to, we were supposed to fly 4 or 5 days before I started getting so many messages on daily basis. You have not done web check-in, do it. I neglected. I thought I'll not do web check-in. Let me just go there and do the check-in. So prepared, I left the temple, took the taxi, go to the airport, stood in the check-in counter, and then I gave my ticket to the lady sitting on the counter. She looked at the ticket, she fed into the system, and then she started staring at my face. So I thought, what's wrong? Why is she looking at me like that? Then she spoke to the person on the next counter. And I thought there is something wrong. There is something fishy here. So I asked her, what happened, ma'am? She said, sir, your flight is already taken off. The flight is gone. I said, what? Yes. The flight took off at 6:30 in the morning. And now it is 7:30. So I was, of course, shocked. But then what else I could do? So I knew what will be her next statement, that now you go for another flight. What can she do now? She can also not do anything. So then immediately I make my trip and started looking at what are the options available. The same day flight was there, but it was very expensive, 15,000 for the flight. And next day also 15,000. So I was thinking, what should I do? Maybe I can cancel the whole plan of going to Gorakhpur, but then return flight is also booked. That money will also go into waste. And then if I book the flight now, 15,000 more I have to put. So I was confused. And then I asked that lady, what can be done? She said, you have to book again, new booking. She asked me, why did you not check the mail? We sent you a message that your flight has been rescheduled. I opened up my mail and I did not find any mail from SpiceJet. So I told you, see, I did not receive any mail. Maybe I deleted. I did not, take that mail seriously. So I thought it's my fault. They might have sent a mail. And I also thought it's their fault too. If they can send so many messages on phone for web check-in. Why they can't send a message on phone for the change of schedule of the flight too? If they can send messages on phone, they should also send a message about flights timings change. So then she sent me to the head, I think, of that department. And she told me, sir, I can rebook your flight. So I said, for when? She said, for today. I said, when is the flight? She said, after 2 hours, but you have to go to Delhi, then wait in Delhi for 6-7 hours, then go to Gorakhpur. So your whole day will go at night, 9 o'clock, you'll reach Gorakhpur. I said, no, I don't want to waste my whole day. Let me get a flight for tomorrow. And she said, okay. So then I asked her, how much do I have to pay? She said, nothing. You don't have to pay anything. I said, I don't have to pay anything. No, we are giving you a free ticket. So I said, really? She said, yes. I said, are you giving me a free ticket just for today? No, I can give you a free ticket for tomorrow also. So I said, then go ahead, do it. Give me a ticket for tomorrow. She gave me ticket. And when this happened, I remembered this shloka. Without endeavoring for happiness, it will come. Did I endeavor for a free ticket? No, I did not ask her. I did not even expect it will happen. Because I thought, whatever it might be my mistake also. Flight timings do change. And if I don't read the mail, then it's my mistake. But because I was supposed to get that, I got it without me working for it. This is how life is. And what you're supposed to get, you will get. And what you're not supposed to get, we may really, really work very hard, we will not. And this comes in the scriptures at so many places. So the scriptures say, why don't be intelligent? Use your valuable time to get that which is worth getting. Krishna consciousness. Use your time for that, because that's what one can actually work for and get, which has no restrictions of time, place, situation. So this verse, Narad is saying the same thing in verse number 18. Every man everywhere is trying to obtain the greatest amount of sense enjoyment by various endeavors. Some men are busy engaged in trade, industry, economic development, political supremacy, etc. And some of them are engaged in fruitive work to become happy in the next life by attaining higher planets. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for greater sense enjoyment. Let me tell you one more interesting part of the story. I forgot actually. On my return flight from Gorakhpur, I had not done web check-in again. So when I was there standing on the counter to do the check-in, the lady came there and she said, "Sir, you have not done the check-in yet?" I said, "No." So she said, "We still have, in the flight, they have those special seats where you get extra leg space by paying extra money, right?" So she said that because you are a Swami, we will give you that seat for free without any extra charges. So I was thinking this whole trip is to teach me this lesson, that without you working hard, you'll still get what you are supposed to get. So I got that seat of extra leg space without paying any extra money. They just gave it to me. So this is how it happens. What the scriptures say is actually true. You can get those experiences. It is said that on the moon, the inhabitants are fit for greater sense enjoyment by drinking somarasa. And the Pitri-log is obtained by good charitable work. So there are various programs for sense enjoyment, either during this life or in the life after death. Some are trying to reach the moon or other planets by some mechanical arrangement, for they are very anxious to get into such planets without doing good work. But it's not to happen. By the law of the Supreme, different places are meant for different grades of living beings, according to the work they have performed. By good work only, as prescribed in the scriptures, can one obtain birth in a good family, opulence, good education, and good bodily features. We see also that even in this life, one obtains a good education or money by good work. Similarly, in our next birth, We get such desirable positions only by good work. Otherwise, it would not so happen that two persons born in the same place at the same time are seen differently placed according to previous work. But all such material positions are impermanent. The positions in the topmost Brahma Lok and in the lowest Patal are also changeable according to our own work. The philosophically inclined person must not be tempted by such changeable positions. He should try to not get into the permanent life of, he should try to get into the permanent life of bliss and knowledge, where he will not be forced to come back again to the miserable material world, either in this or in that planet. Miseries and mixed happiness are two features of material life, and they are obtained in Brahma Loka and in other lokas also. They are obtained in the life of the demigods and also in the life of the dogs and hogs. The miseries and mixed happiness of all living beings are only of different degree and quality. But no one is free from the miseries of birth, death, old age, and disease. Similarly, everyone has his destined happiness also. No one can get more or less of these things simply by personal endeavors. We cannot change much. We can only change little bit, but not much. People think they can change, but they cannot change. It's not possible to change. The whole world is moving under the direction of Kal, and everything is so finely defined how things will happen. We cannot change. We can only move them to the, we can only postpone them to some extent, but not much. Even if they are obtained, they can be lost again. One should not therefore waste time with these flimsy things. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. One should only endeavor to go back to Godhead. That should be the mission of everyone's life. No other mission. Navai jano jatu kathanchana vrajen mukund sevyan mayadvat anga sansutim smaran mutkunangri upaguhanam punar vihatumichena narasagraho janaha. My dear Vyasa, even though a devotee of Lord Krishna sometimes falls down, some or other, he certainly does not undergo material existence like others, fruitive workers. Because a person who has once relished the taste of the lotus feet of the Lord can do nothing but remember that ecstasy again and again. And this, I think we all have experienced. There is nothing like the bliss of Krishna consciousness. There is nothing that can be compared to it. When we joyfully chant and dance in Hare Krishna, there is no better party celebration than that. When we sit and hear Srimad-bhagavatam, the beautiful pastimes of Krishna, there is nothing more enjoyable than that. There's nothing as blissful as that in this world. No experience can be compared to it. Everything else, going to movies, eating in restaurants, and all those socializing, everything becomes so dull and faded and dry and tasteless for one who has tasted Krishna consciousness. It all becomes very cheap, shallow. So one who has tasted Krishna consciousness, even if that person falls to materialistic activities, he'll not forget that bliss of Krishna consciousness. And that will bring him or her back soon into Krishna consciousness, because he or she will remember that and will want to be back. So that's why what Narad is trying to tell Vyasadeva, don't tell people about diluted versions of spirituality. Tell them for the most pure. Vyasadeva may argue, but people are not qualified for most pure. If you give them most pure, they may mishandle it and they may fall down from it. So Narad says, no problem. Let them fall down. That's okay. Let them fall down. But once they get the taste of it, they will cry for it. They'll hanker for it. They'll desire for it. And when they do that, they will be back into that position again. So that's why Narad is saying, let them have the taste of the best Let them go for the best. Let them once see what it is. They will never forget it again. And this will bring them back to it. A devotee of the Lord automatically becomes uninterested in the enchantment of material existence because he is rasa graha, or one who has tasted the sweetness of the lotus feet of Lord Krishna. There are certainly many instances where devotees of the Lord have fallen down due to uncongenial association, just like fruity workers who are always prone to degradation. But even though he falls down, a devotee is never to be considered the same as fallen karmi. A karmi suffers the result of his own fruitive reactions, whereas a devotee is reformed by chastisement directed by the Lord himself. The sufferings of an orphan and the sufferings of a beloved child of a king are not one and the same. An orphan is really poor. An orphan is really poor because he has no one to take care of him. But a beloved son of a rich man, although he appears to be on the same level as the orphan, is always under the vigilance of his capable father. A devotee of the Lord, due to wrong association, sometimes imitates the fruitive workers. The fruitive workers want to lord it over the material world. Similarly, a neophyte devotee foolishly thinks of accumulating some material power in exchange for devotional service. Such foolish devotees are sometimes put into difficulty by the Lord himself. As a special favor, he may remove all material paraphernalia. By such action, the bewildered devotee is forsaken by all friends and relatives, and so he comes to his senses again by the mercy of the Lord and is set right to execute his devotional service. In the Bhagavad Gita, it is also said that such fallen devotees are given a chance to take birth in a family of highly qualified brahmanas or in a rich mercantile family. A devotee in such a position is not as fortunate as one who is chastised by the Lord and put into a position seemingly of helplessness. This is very important. We should know one thing. If Krishna is very kind on us, Krishna will be very harsh with us. And if Krishna is not kind on us, he'll be very, very pampering towards us. His real kindness is if he shows us the harsh reality of the material world. Like Prabhupada says, the naked reality of material life. If Krishna shows that to us, then he's very merciful on us. Because he is breaking our attachments to material life. Once those attachments are broken, then we can fully take shelter of Krishna. As long as we have attachments in this world, we are not niskinchana. We cannot really appreciate Krishna's shelter, Krishna consciousness. We cannot. We cannot feel that dependence on Krishna because we are still depending on so many other factors. So to those whom Krishna is very merciful, those fortunate souls, Krishna will put a lot of difficulties in their personal life. And that will help them to depend on Krishna immensely. And then their Krishna consciousness will become very strong. So this is how the science is. That the more we have to struggle, the more it is Krishna's mercy. The more it's easy for us, the more Krishna has not yet taken interest into our lives. Because if he makes the process rapid for us, then we have to also pay the price for it. Which is what? Which is that you go through ups and downs, rough times in life. Like the Pandavas, their whole life was full of difficulties. One difficulty goes, the next day they open the door and they see the second one. Every day, difficulty after difficulty, after difficulty, after difficulty. So this is how Krishna consciousness works actually. But we think no. The more easy it is, the more Krishna is kind upon us. The more easy it is, the more slow it is. The devotee who becomes helpless by the will of the Lord is more fortunate than those who are born in good families. The fallen devotees born in a good family may forget the lotus feet of the Lord because they are less fortunate. But the devotee who is put into a forlorn condition is more fortunate because he swiftly returns to the lotus feet of the Lord, thinking himself helpless all around. Pure devotional service is so spiritually relishable that a devotee becomes automatically uninterested in material enjoyment. That is the sign of perfection in progressive devotional service. A pure devotee continuously remembers the lotus feet of Lord Sri Krishna and does not forget him, even for a moment, not even in exchange for all the opulence of the three worlds. And that is the glory of bhakti. We'll stop here. Continue from next verse in the next class. So, any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhuji, Ravindra Sachiputra Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare
Dandavat Pranam.
Dandavat Pranam.
I just changed my setting. Now you can hear. Prabhuji, this is in relation to the last time we did not do the questions. You said you will take it up today. You will take it up in the next class. So I had only one question from that previous class, which I found it very difficult to understand the language which was involved. So it is in the text number 8, but I'll just read it out the 3 lines. Dry philosophical speculations, even on the transcendental subject of the absolute, have very little attraction without directly dealing with the glorification of the Lord. Part by part, I understand what it means, but I'm unable to understand the synthesis of it. I'll read it again. Dry philosophy.
And I heard you. So it is very simple. What is being said in that statement is that even if people are studying transcendental subject matter, which means about Atma, Atma Gyan, and it's all about speculating on that subject matter. The subject is spiritual. But even such kind of speculation or such endeavors will not bring one complete satisfaction because, as the translation of that verse says, without the touch of devotional service to God, no subject matter becomes tasteful.
Prabhuji, what you want to say is that with the touch of the glorification of the Lord, even a dry philosophical speculation becomes enlightenment. Yes. But we have always learned that dry philosophical speculation is not.
Philosophical speculation is okay, no, mental speculation is not correct. Philosophical speculation means what? You are trying to intellectually understand the philosophy.
Mental platform.
Contemplation on it.
What would be the difference between a dry philosophical speculation and a non-dry philosophical speculation? The example or something like that.
What is the difference? Why your voice is so?
What would be the difference between a dry philosophical speculation example and a non-dry philosophical speculation example?
Example.
Dry and non-dry.
So dry philosophical speculation would be, let's say you are studying Sanskrit, and then on the basis of that Sanskrit, you take a verse from the Veda, and then you sit whole day trying to understand what is the meaning of this verse, right? So then you have knowledge of Sanskrit. You look at Sanskrit dictionary. This word is there. It can mean this. It can mean that. It can mean this. It can mean that. Then you take another word. It can mean this. It can mean that. And then you put those words together and then say, this is the meaning of this shloka. So this is called dry philosophical speculation, right? And when you say non-dry philosophical speculation, so then you take a shloka of Srimad-bhagavatam, and then you look at the words, and then you look at the meaning that Bhishma Pitama is talking to Krishna like this, and he's taking the name of Krishna as Partha Sarthi, and you are the friend of Arjuna, and then you try to understand those meanings and what is the real import of Bhishma Pitama behind taking these names of Krishna, what indirect message he's trying to give. That is also speculation, philosophical speculation. You are using your intellect to understand or decode the meaning behind the shloka. But because it is related to Krishna, it will give some satisfaction.
Thank you, Prabhuji. You have driven home the point. Hare Krishna.
It will give satisfaction because it is related to Krishna.
Got it, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Prabhu. Vrinda Leela Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. Dandavat.
Mhm.
Prabhuji, I have two questions. Like when we read verses like 17th verse and all, where we see his mercy pouring in, and it appears that devotional service is so easy because we are getting support in so many ways, nothing is going waste and all that. But then we also read here also we have examples, and other side also we have example. Like Gopakumar is struggling so hard, birth after birth, birth after birth. Even Vaikuntha is going and then he is coming back. Then at the end, after such a long time, he is reaching the Lord. So is it easy or difficult? What is it actually? That's one. And second is, where are we going wrong? What should I do that I improve myself? Like we know the goal with the Guru's mercy, we know the goal. And still, if I'm not able to progress further, I should be able to figure out where the things are going wrong. So how do we map it out? What is the solution for that?
Thank you, Mataji, for the question. So the first question is Bhakti easy or is it difficult? It depends on what definition do we give to the word easy and difficult. If we compare the process of Bhakti to the other processes, it's pretty easy, pretty simple. But then if you look at Bhakti in itself, then Bhakti has different levels. So definitely going from one level to the next level is not going to be an easy thing. Within its own arena, it has different levels of difficulty. Compared to other processes, it is very easy. But once we are into the arena of Bhakti, then it has different levels of difficulties. So when you look at those different levels, then definitely you will say this level of Bhakti is more difficult than that level of Bhakti. This level of Bhakti is more difficult than that level of Bhakti. So that difficulty will be experienced by a person because it is challenging from moving from level 1 to level 2, from level 2 to level 3, from level 3 to level 4. It will be relatively difficult. So it all depends on in what context do we use the word easy and difficult. As we compare it to other yoga processes, Bhakti is very easy, simple, sublime, as Prabhupada says. Because in other yoga processes, one needs so much of external qualification, whether it's Jnana Yoga or Ashtanga Yoga. So compared to that, Bhakti is so simple, so easy. But within Bhakti, if one is trying to move ahead, then it will have levels of difficulty. What was easy when we joined in Krishna consciousness in those days of our beginning days, then for that level of Krishna consciousness, definitely it was so easy. You eat so much of prasadam, and you engage in so much of physical seva, stuff like that. But then as we start making progress and we realize that we have so many anarthas to work upon, and we have to slowly minimize our eating and sleeping and material demands and material needs, then it starts getting difficult. It starts getting difficult. It's not that easy anymore. However, it's not that difficult that we cannot do it. Krishna also gives the ability and strength to do it. What we struggle to do in the beginning days, now we can easily do those things. Like a new person struggles to complete 16 rounds. But after a few couple of years, completing 16 rounds is not that difficult. One is able to easily do that. One may not be able to chant nice rounds, but completing that count is not at all that difficult. One is able to do that. Then there's another level of difficulty, and that will always be there as we make progress, or we want to try to make progress. The level of difficulty will increase. However, our ability to come up to that level will also increase. Krishna will provide that strength. Next question, what should we do to make progress? For different people, it will be different things. It's not one answer for all. But then, first of all, that desire to make progress should be there. If that is there, that is in itself a big thing, because so many people don't want to make progress at all. They are just happy with where they are. Just happy. They are at a particular stage and they are so happy being at that stage. They don't want to make progress. They just accept that as the ultimate stage of Krishna consciousness. So the desire to be a progressive devotee is in itself a good thing. Then if we are not making progress, so what we should do? Why are we not making progress? We should make a surveillance of what is going on in our mind. Which anarthas are we not able to overcome? Is it lust? Is it greed? Is it anger? Is it pride? Is it envy? What are the anarthas that we are still fighting against for after so many years? We should find that out. And then once we have found that out by proper contemplation, then we should look into those sections of the scriptures which help us to fight back those anarthas. We should read those pastimes of Krishna, where Krishna kills the demons representing those anarthas. We should confess about those anarthas in front of our spiritual masters, in front of the deities. And then when we repent about that, and we then tell them that we want to overcome these anarthas, we are serious about it, then they will also show us the way. How can we come out of those anarthas? They will show us the way, they will guide us in this way. Winning over one anartha after anartha, one anartha after anartha, then someday our heart will become quite free from these anarthas. So that's the process. It's the process of self-study, swa-adhyaya. Swadhyaya, that's what it means. You study the self. Where am I now? Which anarthas are blocking my progress? And how can I overcome them? So when you start looking like that, then Krishna gives so much of help. Krishna will speak to us as Paramatma. Krishna will speak to us through the books. Krishna will speak to us through other people. He will point to us where we are wrong. And once we come to know that, then we have to depend on him to come out of that also. By praying, by seriously praying. Pray when? Pray when you chant. Pray when you are in front of the deities. Pray when you are serving the deities. Pray during Guru Puja. Be prayerful as much as possible. And when we pray for help from Krishna to overcome those anarthas, then Krishna will give that help. We'll definitely fall in our efforts. But then falling in our efforts will make us cry louder for help. It will make us depend on Krishna more, that I am not able to do on my own. Please help me. And then when we'll seriously cry means really cry, really cry in front of Krishna, that I am helpless. I cannot overcome these weaknesses. Then Krishna will shower his blessings and mercy. Because Krishna is doing all this for that someday you come to me and you cry. All the difficulties that we have in life is to bring us to the point that we cry to Krishna for help. It's a part of Krishna's plan that we cry for him. When we cry for him, then our life becomes successful. Because when you cry for him, you'll get him. So to come to that point, all these difficulties are there. And then when we cry for Krishna, Krishna will help. So once we have overcome the stage of anartha nivritti and we go to the highest stage of devotional service, these problems won't be there. Right, Mataji? And in detail, you can definitely check with those who know you closely. You know what faults we have, what are our setbacks, that can be told to us by those who stay with us, who observe us closely, who notices our activities, who is aware about our thoughts and intentions. So those people can tell us that this is where you are wrong. Like I can give you an example. You know, since last couple of days, one devotee is coming to temple in the morning program. He comes during japa time and sits in the temple to do japa. Now I know that person since last 1 year, but he never came for morning program. Recently, one astrologer told him, if you do your spiritual sadhana in the morning, you'll get more money. So that's why he's coming in the morning program. That's how people are. To get more money, they will come to morning program. But to get Krishna, they'll not come to morning program. But for money, they'll come to morning program. Anyway, what can be done? So this person, he comes to morning program because the astrologer told him. So I observe him. I have not told him, but I observe him. He's so chanchal in his mind that he cannot sit at one place for a long time. If he's walking, he cannot walk in one place for a long time. You know, while chanting, he's just looking around, things, looking at things. So because I saw him, I observed him, I can tell him that this is where you are wrong. Likewise, who can tell us where we are wrong? Those people who observe us, those people who are around us. They will tell, they can tell. So we should ask them, where am I wrong? So they will tell, okay, this is where you are wrong as an individual. And you help, you listen to that and take the help to change. Yes, Mataji, is that okay?
Yes, Prabhu. But just one small question. What is the meaning of taking shelter of his lotus feet? I know Bali Maharaj is the Acharya, but then like for him, Krishna himself kept his lotus feet on his head and he accepted. But how do we understand? Like I want to take shelter, but what should be done? What is the meaning?
Taking shelter of lotus feet of Krishna is not that okay. We have to really think about Bali Maharaj's pastime and he placed his lotus feet on his head. The idea of taking shelter of Krishna's lotus feet means that I am dependent on Krishna. Now, to be dependent on Krishna, one has to put oneself in that situation that one can depend on Krishna. That's what it means to take shelter of Krishna's lotus feet. It means to be dependent, to feel that dependency on Krishna. That's what it means to be sheltered at his lotus feet. So to depend on Krishna means what? To give up dependence on others. That's what it means. To give up the dependence on others. That we have to do. To cut the knots in the heart. Right? Then we take dependence, then we depend on Krishna. That's what it means. People generally think that Krishna and others, we want to have both together. But that's not real dependence on Krishna. Real dependence on Krishna means when that day will come in your life, that though you have people around you, you will still feel lonely. And in that loneliness, you will take shelter of Krishna. That you alone are mine, no one else. And that's called dependence on Krishna. That I don't depend on anyone else. I don't depend on my parents. I don't depend on my husband or wife. I don't depend on my children. I don't depend on my so-called friends, the society. I don't depend on anyone. Because though they are there, still they don't know me, they don't understand me, they cannot always help me. And in that environment, one feels who is mine and whose I am. And if that answer to that question coming from the heart is it's only Guru and Krishna, then I am depending on Krishna's lotus feet, sheltered on Krishna's lotus feet. Yes, it was wrong on Draupadi's part to seek help from others in the assembly and not ask Krishna directly. Because Draupadi is a devotee of Krishna, she should depend fully on Krishna. Krishna is using that as a pastime to teach us that lesson only, that you should depend on me fully, don't depend on others. Krishna is using that pastime to teach us through Draupadi that dependence should be on me, not others. And that's what we learn from the residents of Golok Vrindavan. They don't do this mistake. When they get into problem, they only go for one shelter, and that is Krishna. They don't go for any other shelter. You don't see a Gopa going to another Gopa for help. If there is a demon, they will only cry for Krishna. They'll not go anywhere else. They'll not run here and there. When there is problem, Ma Yashoda will not call Nanda Baba, she'll call Krishna. When there is problem, Nanda Baba will not call Mother Yashoda because she is his wife. He will call Krishna. That's the speciality of the Vrajvasis, that they are fully dedicated to Krishna and his shelter, right? And they don't envy each other. That why? Only can Krishna help you? I cannot help you? No. They know that only Krishna is there for us. So the Brajvasis have that mood. Full dependence on Krishna. No one else can help. That's what we have to learn. All right, we'll stop here. Thank you very much. See you on Thursday. Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Granth Raj, Srimad-bhagavatam ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.